Well, hello, and welcome to another installment of The Persistent Rumor. My name is Chocolate Yoddah, spelled Yoddah, because film studios are litigious, and with me as always is my heterosexual life mate, Chancleta.
Hey man, what's happening? Again, another podcast here at The Persistent Rumor. Biddy bang bang. That was all I got.
What's the genesis, right? So
Yeah.
I have a theory about it, and it's probably not at all my theory, but I've heard it discussed in the sense of this move toward rewarding failure. I believe it started around 1970, and I think it was Benjamin Spock that wrote the book where he was trying to change the paradigm for how parents parented children. And that's where timeout started, and that's where participation trophies started. Like, everything was about building the child's self-esteem.
Sure.
Because I really do believe this is a societal issue. I don't believe that companies are to be held responsible for this in any way, shape, or form.
Sure. Okay.
I believe it falls squarely on the shoulders of the individuals in society and then the collective of society. So what happens when you bring someone up through the school system from grade school on up, where people are going to learn a lot about socialization, right? And,
Sure.
and socializing and interacting with people. This is like you're giving them the template, and you're never letting them experience losing. Because if you take away the feeling of losing, you want to talk about incentives. Like, what incentivizes someone to work hard to win if they're rewarded for losing?
Yeah.
I think that's a big aspect of it. I don't know if I can necessarily connect the dots between that and what you're describing, but I have a feeling that they belong on the same continuum.
And that's really where I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And it's just like, to me, it's like, where do we head this shit off at the pass, right? Like,
let's start by not being so fucking concerned that every little negative thing is going to ruin a child.
Yeah.
You have, look, I'll go back to something that you and I have spoken about privately many, many times, which is the concept of struggle, right? What is struggle, and is there a value to struggle? So let's look at the universe on the macro level, and then human beings on the micro and macro level. And maybe other animals as well. So far, the best science that we have tells us that the universe was created out of an enormous explosion.
Right.
So that's already a sign of struggle, right? An explosion is tension. It's a huge release of energy. Collisions create planets and stars and moons, right? Supernovas, all of this violent interaction. And guess what? Doesn't the same thing happen in our bodies? Cells literally go to war inside of us.
I mean, I just burped, so I get it.
You motherfucker.
Fancy.
Oh, fuck, that's good. So you've got all these examples. You've got all these examples in nature, all around us, internally, externally, universally, globally, of constant struggle. I mean, the planet isn't even done cooling yet, right? Volcanoes are still erupting because the core is just, lava, supposedly, right? Or maybe there's another Hobbit village in there somewhere, whatever, that Middle Earth theory shit. Well, not Middle Earth. I'm sorry, Hollow Earth. The Hollow Earth theory.
Yeah.
That there's a whole nother fucking civilization in the middle of the Earth. And hey, there very well could be, right? There's more to heaven and earth, Horatio, than is dreamt of in your philosophy, right?
Hey, listen.
I just watched Hamlet again. Sorry. No, not sorry. Fuck you.
That might explain the Yetis.
I don't know what that means, but that's fucking hysterical.
Yeah.
But so, my favorite example of struggle is a chick trying to break out of an eggshell. And everything I've read about that says that if a human has compassion and wants to make that journey into life easier and chips away at the eggshell for the chick, that chick will die. Mm-hmm. So that answers the question, or starts to answer the question potentially of, is there usefulness to struggle? Well, in the case of the chick, it's vital. Mm-hmm. Removing the struggle from that experience weakens the chick to the point that it dies. Its life is dependent on that struggle. Plants, many of them grow up out of the earth, right? You've got trees and they have to break through the surface. And if they don't, if they're not strong enough and they start to curve at the surface, well, they die. Right, because they can't get to the point where their leaves are exposed and experience photosynthesis and give themselves nutrients and continue that cycle. So they die, right? So all around us, on the macro level, on the micro level, and on the individual level, like childbirth, that's violent as fuck.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So violent that an infant's head gets reshaped. They come out cone heads before their skull settles into the semi-round light bulb type, shape that we have, right? Or in my case, a fucking giant bowling ball. But, how much more evidence do we need to understand how struggle is not only useful, but absolutely necessary in some cases? And I believe that as human beings, part of the dilemma that we have, part of the physical sickness that we have, part of the soul sickness that we have, is a result of the removal of struggle. Like, it's that old saying of, hard times create hard men go to war. War creates soft times create soft men, and then soft people create hard times. Right? Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's the phase that we're in right now, where softness has created hardship for us. Because look at how much sitting people do. I know myself, the last few months in quarantine, I am like a fucking veal now because I haven't worked out in months. Mm-hmm. And, everything is harder. I'm used to being strong. I'm a fucking power lifter. I've squatted 500 pounds on my back. I like that feeling of being strong, and this softness. And look, this is not anything that happened to me. This is something that I decided. I went into quarantine and just stopped fucking exercising. And I have exercise equipment at home and all that other stuff. But because I gave up the struggle of exerting my body, I am paying the price for that, right? And I am a microcosmic example of what's happening in the macro, because America is among the fattest, sickest developed countries on earth. The opioid addiction is insane.
Yeah.
The antidepressant prescriptions are insane. There is a price to pay for removing struggle. Like depression, you could cure most depression, and I do not want to minimize the experience of the depressed. Believe me when I tell you, I understand depression. But so much depression can be addressed if someone just took a walk every day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You're
right.
Like move, because our bodies are designed for the thing that was real for us 10,000 years ago, which was walking around all day looking for food, hunting shit, running away from shit that's trying to hunt us.
Right.
You know, and
now we're indoor cats.
You don't see caveman fossils of fat cavemen, right? Because everybody was moving all day long, walking around thousands and thousands of steps every day, because that's what we had to do. And this is a great example of how technology changes, but we have not changed.
Yeah.
We have not gotten to the point where we can be sedentary. Right? So all of this, I believe, contributes to that motherfucker who gets on the phone and acts like a complete asshole.
Huh. Talk about, bring that back, huh? Yeah. Full circle.
That's my genius.
Yeah.
The callback.
But that's just it. And it's just like, I hate that so much. Just like I thought about a way, like if I thought about that donut shop scenario where, people are lining up and, and the guy, the owner just goes up to the client. It's like, I'm fucking busy, right? Like, I'm fucking busy. You see a fucking line here? Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, I read a review, about a restaurant, and I forget the name of the restaurant, but they want bad reviews on Yelp. Right?
That's interesting.
And they have it, and part of their thing is that they bust your balls when you walk in or whatever, but they want bad reviews on Yelp.
So
and
that's
I thought,
their shtick, and okay.
I thought that was a shtick and everything, and then I thought about it. It's like, I wonder like where we could go with this, and I thought it's like, hey, listen, just that very idea of a of a business owner just like really just putting a kibosh on that client coming in or the customer coming in and just really just being an asshole.
Yeah, I'm all for the idea of putting the kibosh, some people say kibosh, on bratty behavior. I mean, just a couple of days ago, I was at a bagel shop. I made a video of this under Chocolate Chat Quickie, one of our channels on the Persistent Rumor.
Link down below in the description.
I'm so happy that we're in sync on that. That's hilarious.
It took a while, but I'm here, baby. That. I'm here for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is the scenario. I'm in my favorite bagel store. And because they make handmade bagels and they're fluffy, and I don't eat bagels very often because they're fatty as fuck. But I went the other morning, and while I'm waiting, after I place my order, this guy gets his order, and they call out the number, and then they repeat the order, and so they said, just to pick a number 145. Blah, blah, blah bagel with butter and jelly. And he's like, no, jelly? No, I just wanted it with butter. And they're like, sorry. And they start going back to make the order. This guy has what I described in the video, a level 8 meltdown. And it's only a 3-minute video, so I'll put the link to that in the description. So the level 8 meltdown, he starts going, what the fuck? Even the simplest thing? God, why the fuck do you keep doing this to me? Like that, to the point where I'm looking, because I'm like, if this guy snaps, I'm ready to put him down and make sure he doesn't hurt me or anybody else. So, that's my martial arts sensibility. I can't just keep my back to a potential threat. So I'm like, yo, dude, are you going to fucking calm down? But he acted like someone was like, hey, we're about to cut your dick off.
Right.
Like that's the intensity that he was at. And when I tell you that it took less than 60 seconds to correct the order, I'm not exaggerating. He's having his fucking tantrum out loud and well, fucking God, why does God fuck me like this? And like he's blaming God because they put jelly on his bagel. Are you fucking kidding me? You know, and then they were just like, oh, sorry, here you go. They got another bagel. They made it, wrapped it up, gave it to him. It was done. But that to me is an attitude that can only exist in the mainstream. Because on the fringes, I understand you're always going to have aberrant behavior, but I believe that behavior is mainstream now because I see it all the time. That's what all the Karens are about. That's what, you know, that's what, and it's all of these people that were raised where, oh, we're going to make sure that Johnny is happy and has high self-esteem no matter what. We don't want him to experience losses. We don't want him to have a negative feeling ever in his body because that's how we're going to raise healthy human beings. Well, guess what, folks? You've been doing this shit 50 years now. The experiment's over. It failed. It doesn't work. Stop it.
Just like trickle-down economics. It's not working. Yeah.
You know, that's 40 years now. Trickle-down economics doesn't work. It was never an economic policy. It was something thought up by politicians. But I get that psychologists and behavior modification specialists and child therapists or whatever conglomeration of fucking experts wanted to try this idea where a child never experienced anything negative. Okay, fair. I get the attempt, but it's been 50 motherfucking years now. And it didn't work. It's clear that it didn't work. Okay, right. I am all for building a child's self-esteem, but do it genuinely. When a child does something right, acknowledge that it's right. If a child does something wrong but did their best, acknowledge that they did their best, but let them know it's wrong. You know, if a child fucks up, punish them for it. And I'm not saying beat your child, but take away a toy, give them a consequence for wrong behavior. Because otherwise, you're going to get this psychopath in a bagel store screaming about fucking jelly on his bagel.
And that's just it. And like, you know, like here's the thing. Like my daughter, my daughter's 6 now. And so she, when we bought her a bed, you know, we were worried, oh, she's going to roll over and hurt herself. And she certainly did at one point. But what we did was, instead of putting rails to prevent that, we said, let's just make sure she doesn't land on anything that'll stab her or, you know, impale her or anything, right? Like, and so, you know, there were certain things that I saw around and I was like, oh, this could be bad, you know, whatever. And so now she's 6. Mm-hmm. And recently she fell and chipped her tooth.
Ooh.
Now, it wasn't that bad or whatever.
Baby tooth or adult tooth?
It's a baby tooth.
Okay.
And actually, it's funny you said that because the thing I said is like, hey, you're lucked out, kid, because I tell you what, if that was your grown-up teeth, that's it. You don't get new ones. You know what I mean? So you got a good break there, kid. All right? Now be mindful of what you're doing in bed. Try not to move too fucking much, and you'll be all right. All right? Skidooch, go to bed.
Yeah, I have no experience trying to address that issue. That is an interesting issue.
And that's just it. Like, I found myself being a helicopter dad for a while, like a helicopter parent. Because, you know, here's the thing. It's like, you know, and it's, you know, yeah, you love your kid, obviously, right? You don't want to see your kid get hurt. Mm-hmm. And I remember being at the playground with her, and, you know, she wants to try the monkey bars. And so she's holding on, and I know, like, this is like her first time, so she's not gonna like wing it and just like be amazing in the beginning. So she'll like hold on and she'll get to like one ring and then like, oh, she'll lose her grip, right? So I was there to catch her. And, you know, and everything. I was just there like to catch her if she fell or whatever. And eventually I just said, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, I can't do this because she's gonna get hurt.
They have to experience trial and error. They have to figure it out for themselves. You know, I had a strategy when my son was very little. And it was something that I thought of consciously, which is when he falls, I do not react. I just look at him and I wait.
Yeah.
And what turned out to be really, really great about that is that I always knew when my son was really hurt.
Right.
Because and here's why I came up with that strategy, because before I was a father, I wanted to be a father, so I paid attention to what parents were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And here's one mistake that I picked up on among many, but when children fell, I could see that they weren't hurt.
Yeah.
But once the mom or dad came running over going, "Oh my God, are you okay?" That's when they started to cry.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
That's like,
you're conditioning your child in a way that's not productive for you or the child, right? So I thought, okay, be neutral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it worked. Sometimes my son would fall and hit. Like, I remember one time that I broke my rule about that. My son was running full speed and ran into the corner of a wall, meaning the corner that sticks out. Boom.
Ooh, yeah, nice.
Bounced off that shit and fell on his ass. And I was like, ah! Because it looked painful as fuck.
Yeah.
But because of the years of conditioning, because at that point he was about 3.5 years old. Was he that old? Yeah, around there, 3.5. At that point, he was used to me being neutral, thankfully, because even though I yelled out, because I thought for sure he was hurt, he sat, he furrowed his brow, he rubbed his forehead, and then got right back up.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy fuck, how did he not brain himself in this situation? But that, that became something that as he grew older, it made my life so much easier, because if I heard my son crying, I knew I had to rush over because I knew he was hurt for real. And it just took another fucking thing off my plate as a parent.
And that's just it. I mean, there's basically like the smallest things that we do have repercussions, right? They have, and whether they're positive or negative, we don't often know,
right?
Because these are just things that we do. And
a lot of parenting is theory, because look, we've been around for 300,000 years, and we've been sort of a civilization, so to speak, for roughly 10,000 years. And you'd think that we'd have this shit figured out by now, but clearly we don't.
No,
right?
I mean, I think childhood, as it stands now, I think we're like maybe 3 or 4 generations into what I think childhood is now, like where, you're going to school every day. You live at home with your parents. You just go and have fun, and and there's, you don't have to go to work at 12. You know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of shit. You know what I mean? So there's not a lot of experience in the grand scheme of things with this kind of parenting, where it's just like, because I like, even in my parents' era,
if you assume that human behavior is fairly consistent, which I do, it seems obvious to me that this is something that could have easily been worked out by persistent observation and then passing on that information through the eons,
Mm-hmm.
But there's been a major disconnect in that. Like, it's still a fucking experiment about like what is the best way to raise a child. And I can't speak to all children. I will say that the way I raised my son, it was always a big question mark, because I wasn't using a template, because I didn't have a father around, and I didn't agree with the way my mother raised me, so I had no template to go on. So I had to just come up with my own template, and it took me close to 30 years to find out that the template worked. And the only reason I found out it worked is because my son gave me feedback about it, and that was a great moment in my life, because really we just have to swing in the dark and hope that it turns out all right. And even biblically, I make this reference all the time, and I don't know why more people don't talk about this, but Adam and Eve were terrible parents. They raised the first murderer,
Sure. Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Even Bruce Springsteen has a song about that. Adam raised a Cain, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, this parenting thing has eluded us for a long, long time. So it was a relief to see how my son turned out. And I'm in no way, shape, or form trying to paint the picture that he's a perfect person. I think that's a ridiculous standard anyway. But he is the kind of person that I respect and admire because he's a good person. Despite his mistakes and whatever else, he's a good person. And he's intelligent. He's thoughtful. He's also a critical thinker, which that was a big, big gamble that I took. Because when I was a child, I felt that I was not heard. And so I bent over backwards to give my son a voice within reason. But I always had to figure out what that was going to be in the moment because I had nothing to go on. And my proudest moment, and this is going to sound like something contrived, but I swear to you, it was the proudest moment I had at that time of his life when my son was around 9 or 10, and you know this story, but I'll repeat it for the audience. We had this ritual of getting egg and cheese sandwiches on Sunday mornings while we did laundry, usually going to Dunkin' Donuts for that. And they had a special, which was, the sandwich and coffee for X amount. And I thought I was trying to do the right thing by not giving him coffee and substituting it for chocolate milk or something, or hot chocolate, actually. Hot chocolate. Probably not a good choice, but it just seemed better than coffee.
Fair.
And I was always charged the same thing for that. So back when I was poor, I was counting my pennies anytime I went anywhere. So, I was ready to be charged what I was always charged. And this one time, they tried to tell me that because I had made a substitution, that it was going to cost me more. And this was very impactful to me to pay more in this case. So I became the customer that you were describing earlier. I was like, what the fuck? You charge me the same thing every time. Why is it different now suddenly? I have this every Sunday. What is going on? Da, da, da. Long story short, the incident is done. We walk out of the place. And my son turns to me and says, Dad, you were kind of a jerk in there. And I could not be more proud in that moment. I was like, yes, I gave my son a voice. This was such a big deal to me, because I gave my son 3 rules for living right around the same time when he was 9 or 10. And here they are. And for anyone raising a boy, I think this will work on girls too, but that's not my area of specialty. I'm giving these rules specifically to a boy. And I said, number 1, respect everybody unless they give you a reason not to. Number 2, never ever start a fight, but always be ready, willing, and able to finish one. And number 3, excuse me while I go through puberty again. And number 3 is don't take any shit from anyone, including me.
Yeah.
And that's a hard one for parents because parents want to lord over their children and demand respect. No. You know what? Your child didn't ask to be here. You brought them into the world. You've got to earn their respect, and you earn their respect by what you do, by saying what you mean and doing what you say. And if you want respect, you've got to give respect. They don't automatically know what respect is. You've got to fucking teach them that. So be a respectful person and be a person that is worthy of respect. I changed my life to be an example for my son, and it took me a long time to figure it out. He was 2 when it finally dawned on me, oh my God, this motherfucker is looking to me to figure out what life is going to be. And I'm a fucking train wreck.
Right. I oftentimes find myself, asking myself, damn, am I being a good role model for my kid? And you know, she's a girl, so it's just like, you know, but you don't realize that as a father, it's like you do play a very important role in her.
Dude, important role? You are the template by which she will measure every man in her life.
Exactly.
How's that for important?
Exactly. So, you know, and it doesn't quite hit you immediately, but it does at one point, and then all of a sudden you're like, you know, I gotta be the kind of man that I want her to bring home to introduce me, right? Like, and so that's what I have to be. And oftentimes I find, man, I'm not, you know, like just that very jerk-like scenario that you said where you were being a jerk to someone. It's like, I gotta try sometimes not to be that dude, right?
Sure.
No, you know, I'm not claiming to be perfect or anything, but it's like, as a general rule, I'm not a dick to people arbitrarily, right? Like, I'm just not like, hey, fuck that, I'm better than you, like, you should do what I want, you know what I mean? Like, that's not the going attitude, but I'm not saying that I've never had that attitude, right? And especially when I was younger, I often felt like, well, shit, yeah, I should get that. I should get, you know, preference. I should, you know, like, leverage my power or leverage, you know, like whatever authority I may have. And as I got older, I realized that's bullshit. Like, you know, I don't like that being done to me, so I don't want that done to anyone.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because your wife and I have been talking about your shitty attitude, and if you look behind you, your family's there. This is actually intervention for you.
I got my nunchucks in the back.
When you act this way, it makes me feel. Oh, dude, yeah, no, it is amazing. You know,
and word from our sponsor.
Yeah, right. It's I think it's the thing where for mothers, being a mother is real immediately because there's something residing inside their body. You know, that is a visceral fucking indicator that there is a new thing going on with you, right? So they get to have that from day one.
Right.
You know, like when a woman, like women usually know they're pregnant before it's confirmed by any fucking test or doctor, right? So
sure.
But we don't have that. We as fathers don't have that experience. The only time that it even begins to be real for men is when we feel the baby kick for the first time. Yeah. Because that's the first visceral experience that we have. And then it starts to dawn on us like, holy shit, this is real. Yeah. Right? You know? And then, of course, now once they come out, now it's like, wow, this is as real as it gets. I just witnessed this horrendous thing so that this little motherfucker could be here, you know? And by the way, one of the most famous British singers in the UK, and I believe the one that still holds like all sorts of records for sales, is Robbie Williams. He used to be part of Take That, one of the big successful boy bands in Britain that had a hit in the United States. But one time he was on a talk show and they asked him, you know, oh, were you there for the birth of your child? And he had said yes. And they were like, well, what was that like? He said, it was like watching my favorite pub burn to the ground.
Yeah.
That still is the best description that I've ever heard. But I avoided that by I didn't stay by the business end when my son was born. I stayed by my wife's head and dealt with her because I was like, yeah, there's no way I'm watching that and will ever be able to look at that shit the same way again.
Yeah. That's it. I think I broke into song when I found out my wife was going to have a cesarean. I don't remember. Yeah. It was like something like The Poon Gets to Live or some shit like that. I forgot what it was. Like a guitar riff I did. It was great.
Oh, fuck.
But I mean, it's like, oh well, hey, listen, honey, you're gonna save some time on Kegel, so that's good.
Yeah, and by the way, I'm curious about that. I want to look to see if there's any studies on this, because again, now a C-section, while I understand the usefulness of it, I wonder, since you're altering the way that a child is meant to come into the world, if that has any kind of effect, and not necessarily a negative effect, but what is there an effect? And I'm after the podcast, I'm going to look into that and see.
I think there is. When it happened, we were looking into a couple of things, and one of the few things that I read, and I don't know if how deep the study went, or were there any controls in the experiment or anything. But one of the things that was found was that statistically, because of all the C-sections that we do, more and more women need C-sections, right? Not just because some women are actually requesting C-sections at this point
to keep their vag pristine. God bless them.
Right, good on you. But it is causing like an uptick in C-sections that are necessary because they can't deliver naturally. And I don't know how
I don't see how that's correlated, but okay, that's interesting.
So right, and so that's what was confusing to me. But apparently, like, if you're born through C-section, that somehow transfers to your DNA somehow, and then you can't, give birth naturally. I don't know how that worked.
That's
but
definitely something I'll look into. If there's a correlation there, that's actually pretty trippy. That's some strong DNA shit right there.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I got high a lot so back then, so I don't know if I remember that completely, but but definitely look it up, and I'll ask my wife to see.
I swear to you, that hit me in waves, because it took me a few seconds to fully appreciate what you were saying.
Yeah. The fact that I got high like immediately post birth. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I was like, yeah.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, but no, it was definitely a surreal experience, and we read a whole bunch of stuff like how weed affects birth in children and things like that, and all sorts of fun stuff, and we read about before our daughter was born, we were reading about like how things affect her in the womb, like if we synced her, like how that affects her. And the one crazy thing that that immediately I noticed, like, she was born through C-section, and so it was really weird because my wife, the epidural didn't work. So essentially they cut her open and she was feeling the whole thing. It was like she was being drawn and quartered. It was crazy. God. So she was in like crazy pain, and like she was feeling everything being pulled and everything. And so, the anesthesiologist was on deck ready to go. And as soon as that baby was out, he was like, yeah, just hit her so that she doesn't have to deal with this shit anymore. Yeah. So basically the baby popped out. We showed it to her. Hey, that's it. I got this. Do your thing. And she got knocked out. And then wow. I rolled with the baby to the nursery. She was crying incessantly for a solid 45 minutes, right? Nonstop.
We're referring to the baby.
The baby. The mom's knocked out. At this point, I don't know where she's at. I'm with the baby. I'm having her I'm trying to calm her down, and she's grabbing my finger. She has a clutch on this little pinky that was unbelievable for a newborn baby. It was like nuts. But she was crying, and I don't recall if she ever took a breath, but it just seemed like she didn't. It was just a perpetual, like, wah, fucking top of the lungs that you could hear her across the fucking hall. So anyway, so she's crying, and she's crying, and she's crying. I don't know what it is. I don't know if she was cold, or she was hot, or the lights were bothering her, or what the fucking situation is.
6 years ago, man. Who gives a shit? You're boring me.
But the point was that she was just crying. I just really want to bring home how crazy the crying was, but whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, so a half hour into this, I'm like, I gotta go find her mom. I go and I find her. She's just getting out of OR. They set her up. I'm just like, I'm going to bring the baby to you. I go and pick up the baby, still crying, put her in a little cart, whatever, roll her to her mom. She's about a solid 7 minutes away or whatever. Roll her to her mom. And the mom, and she grabs her. She's still crying. And she starts singing the song that she was singing in the womb. And at that moment, she just stopped immediately.
That's wild.
Like, oh, my mama. She needed her fucking mama.
Yeah.
I cried like a sack of shit that day. That very moment was just like, oh my God, look, it worked. That was crazy.
And that's when you understand that you are just not the mama.
Yeah, that's it. I'm not the mama. And honestly, until she was 2, I know she did not give a fuck about who I was. Nope. Like, if I was the only dude in the room, she was like, all right, you'll do.
Yeah.
That's it.